able to sit in that kind of position for a long period of time. So we try to balance that. But even as good as our fits are, sometimes there's still pressure on the hands. And a good glove has got, and I don't have real big hands, so I can't wear one with a lot of gel in it, but most of them will have a gel pad that runs here, right at the point of contact to the bar. And you'll just have to decide which pair of gloves are best for you guys, but that is something that also I highly recommend. The Pearl glove, the Pearl Izumi glove, seems to be a really good one for me. Doesn't have a lot of gel to it, just enough to keep that edge off, and it really seems to be a really good one. A jersey. What am I going to wear when I go out for my ride? I want something that is fairly form-fitting, because I don't want something that's just flapping around in the breeze. I want something that's fairly form-fitting, and I want something that wicks the material, wicks the water away, a good wicking material, so that I'm not just sitting, filling the jersey up with water. You'll want a cue sheet holder if you're going out for training runs. Yes?
Visibility?
Visibility. Great. You'll notice that even on our team kits, we've got the big yellow target. Turn around. There you go. They've got something that's big and that's bright somewhere on the jersey. Good point. Thanks. Probably if you're going to go out for training rides and you're not real sure where you're going, it's a good idea to have a cue sheet holder. And most people just get a little clip that they can hold the cue sheet on so that you can see, turn left at the 3-mile marker, turn right at the 7-mile marker. And another thing that's good to have on that ride, if it says turn right on the 3-mile marker, turn left on the 7, is some kind of computer to be able to tell you that you're at the 3-mile marker. So that's another good thing to take out on your ride. Cell phone. Always, true story. I told you about my injury. I had my hip replaced, and because of one accident. And then I felt so good that I went back to training for racing. And when they replace the hip, they screw this rod down into your femur, and that becomes the support for the artificial hip. While I was back in the woods on a training ride, I probably went out for a ride a little earlier than I should have and not allowed it to heal completely. But I crashed, and the rod came through the femur and out the side of the leg. Well, guess what I didn't have? And guess what I was by myself?
Patch kit.
That would have been a good one, too. I didn't have a cell phone. And I laid in the woods for 20 minutes, screaming, till a lady walking a dog found me. And so they gurneyed me out. So, cell phone. Make sure that you have a cell phone with you. And it's also good, your cell phone now has so much data on it, they know who to carry. But we also are now a dealer for road ID. And I'm also really think that becomes another critical part of our training rides to have a road ID on us. I've heard so many horror stories since we started carrying them. We've only been carrying them now for about a month, but I've heard so many horror stories from people that they all ride together all the time, but they don't know who to contact when something goes wrong. They can get them to a hospital, they can call 911, but they don't know who to contact. So I've now become a firm believer in the road ID as well. Questions? I've been up here for a long time.
Do you want to talk about shifting?
Shifting? Sure, love to. Remember when we were talking about that 80 revolutions per minute that we wanted to try to maintain? That's kind of like that tachometer in the car. You can see how fast you're going. It's always good to have, like, one of the tools that, when I first came back to riding again, one of the things that I noticed was that I figured that I've been doing it for so long I would know, I would just have ingrained the proper cadence. So in my computer, I would recommend that cadence become one of the things that I have on my computer. Because the legs are most efficient at that at least 80 revolutions per minute. Pump, 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 pump. That's when our blood circulating to our muscles is feeding our muscles, and we're bringing that lactic acid, that byproduct, out. So the shifting then becomes a key component to maintaining that 80 revolutions per minute. And watching that cadence is key to that. So as I'm starting up the grade, if I'm riding too big a gear, it's almost like doing those leg presses in the gym. Your legs go to fatigue very quickly. So on this, most everybody's probably got Shimano shifters. You know, you got your downshift and your upshift here right at your fingertips. As you start to climb that hill, just remember, just keep downshifting, keep watching that cadence, keep trying to maintain that high revolutions, or you will notice that you very quickly go to fatigue. That the lactic acid buildup in the legs is faster than you can get it expelled, and you'll get halfway up the hill and you just go, I'm done. So that's really important. The biggest mistake that I probably see at Haines Point doing the beginner rides with Team Z is that kind of the opposite happens, that they don't shift to the harder gear. I see a lot of people out there just doing this, and they're not going anywhere. They just, when you want to go past them, you want to go, shift, shift. So that's an important part of it as well, the shifting component, is not only watching that cadence as you climb that hill, but then as you hit the flat ground, start toggling it back down and trying to make it harder for you so that you can pick up a little bit of speed as you go along. And a lot of people, there's a lot of discussion on whether a triple chain ring or a compact chain ring or a standard chain ring or what is the best thing to ride, and everybody goes like, what the hell is it? That's the number of chain rings here on the front of the bike. And the triple allows you to have a small chain ring for climbing hills. It gives you 3 big ranges. And what I tell people is the one on the back is fine-tuning. The one on the front is global changes. The small one is for hill climbing, the middle one's for normal riding, the big one is for going fast. That's the advantage of the triple. They have taken what used to be the standard chain ring and now have made it smaller, hence the compact, which means you have a smaller gear cluster on the front, which makes it easier to ride. It affects the gear ratios so that it makes it easier to ride. And now that we, instead of having 7 and 8 gears in the back, we have 10, the compact chain ring works very well for most rides because you have 10 on the back now instead of just 7, and it allows you to have most of the gears that you need. Unless you're doing a Colorado ride or a Rocky Mountain ride, probably a compact's going to be sufficient. Unless you know that at some point on your ride, you've got a big monster hill in that ride, then you might consider a triple. I know I'm probably not explaining it well. The best thing to do is actually to ride the 2 different bikes and find out what is the right one for you to ride. Any more questions on shifting? Yes.
Well, this is not about shifting, but do you
Sure.
always inflate to 120 or do you recommend that?
That's a really good point. No. As a matter of fact, there's been a lot of discussion lately on what pressure is the correct pressure to use. And the reason the discussion is happening is that a lot of people are saying that they're running 95 to 100. It is true that the higher your tire pressure, the less rolling resistance that you have. But any imperfections that you have in the road causes what is known as lateral deflection. So as you hit things, you're doing this instead of going forward, and that's wasted energy. Whereas a slightly lower air pressure tire rolls over that, and you don't have the deflection. So it's kind of based on where you're riding. I did the sprint triathlon out at Virginia Run a month ago, and all the roads were just paved. You know, I went to 150, and because I knew there wasn't any lateral deflection there at all. I was bombing, but they just had the rest of the sprint triathlon up here, and there was a section coming down to Barron Cameron where it was really nasty, real washboardy and everything. So I went less than that 150, and I've got you know, those tires on that bike are what is known as tubulars, and they'll take real high pressure, so you can run 150, 160 on those. So to answer your question, I think from a general standpoint, I think I would probably run somewhere in that 100 and 95 to 105, depending on where I think I'm going to ride, because that lateral deflection thing has become quite a talking point these days. And yeah, because I mean, it makes sense that you're not going forward if you're going sideways with the.
But that's just for road bikes, though. I know a lot of
Yes.
folks have hybrids and mountain bikes, and they take different pressure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Good point too. If you're riding a hybrid, it's real simple, guys. Look at the side of the tire. On the side of the tire, it gives you your recommended pressure range, and you can still use the same rule of thumb that we just discussed with the lateral deflection. If I know that I'm riding something that's really rough and bad, I tend to go to the lower side of that recommended pressure range. If I'm riding something that's really smooth and nice, I go to the higher range on that pressure range. Yes?
Why is it that a lot of your hybrids have the 3 range versus the 2?
Because of the versatility of them. You know, they want something that anybody can ride. You know, my mom can ride. You know, my mom couldn't push a compact chainring or a standard chainring. You know, she could ride something that had a smaller gear that made it easier to ride. So it's to kind of make it a little bit more diverse in its offering.
I have a question on shifting. I wait to shift up and down on the front. I find when I shift down on the front, I'm in the wrong gear at the back and I'm all over the place until I get sorted out. Is there a rule of thumb?
Yes, really good point too. You have to be careful about this because it can cause you to drop a chain. But what I usually do is as I go from the big to the little, as I drop it down, I tap my right hand side 2 clicks. And that gets me pretty close to the next, what would be the next shift to the lower gear. 3 clicks would probably put you to exactly the same gear. But that's a good general rule of thumb. So as you go to the little ring, click 2 clicks, and that will put you about where you need to be. And I would recommend, for some reason, I love SRAM. SRAM's one of the manufacturers of the shifting components. Shimano has never done this to me, but SRAM has. When I do that, click it down in the small ring and tap twice to get to that gear, I've dropped my chain numerous times. Shimano has not, and so I don't know which shifting system you're